Feel free to jump in, make it interactive, make it yours. This conversation is for you. Ask any questions, interrupt, do whatever you need to do to get the information. Um, I saw a quote this week. It says, "Those who don't know that they don't know don't grow, but those who grow knows, and it shows." This is an opportunity for you to know, to learn and know. So, as you know, we've been talking about moving from your current attitude where you're not getting what you want to charting a course or a path to get to your altitude. And it's not overnight, but it's a step by step process. Self development and improvement is a process. There's no way to make any real progress without a process. So that's why we keep coming on every week with different uh, subject matters that we think can definitely impact your life. So, Dr. Brown, welcome and thank you. How are you doing?
Well, thank you, and it's great to be here. I'm looking forward to our discussion. We had a pretty good discussion last time, so hopefully we'll have a repeat this time.
Yes, indeed. So today we've been talking about the different distortions that impede our growth and impede correct thinking, hinder our thinking, and our thinking definitely is the catalyst. The quality of our thinking is a catalyst for how much we grow. And so it's important to know what these distortions are that get in the way of keeping us broken, busted, and really just not at the place we want to be. So, Dr. Brown, where do you want to start today with this conversation? I know we're going to talk about overgeneralization, which is one of the distortions, but if you want to give a recap of the distortions that we may have that we discussed in the past, we can use this opportunity to do that now. I think some people who may be joining us may not know what the distortions are to date. So I can help to
Okay,
jar your memory. So we can do that just to give
okay.
you the.
So, real simply, a distortion is a way of thinking that is inaccurate. And it's inaccurate because we come to a conclusion without having all the facts. We think we have all the facts, but we don't have all the facts. And if we are operating with half truths or three quarters of truths, it means that, imagine yourself wanting to go west. You decided you want to go west and you don't have the proper direction. You
Mm.
don't know that there's west, there's northwest, there's southwest. You could end
And
up
imagine you don't have
anywhere.
a GPS.
Well, the GPS actually is your accurate thinking. You can look at
Okay.
the GPS as accurate thinking. And when your GPS is off, no telling where you'll end up.
I've actually had situations where I'm driving and the GPS is off, and I end up
Tell
in
us what
places I don't want to
happened.
be. I end up in places I don't want to be. Um, yeah, it's a serious matter. You get very flustered and frustrated and irritated because you're like, this is not what I intended. But she'll keep taking you in circles, and you think you're going the right way when you really aren't. So
Mhm.
serious matters.
Right. So people who generally tend to um, have to cope with that kind of a situation to where it makes a significant impact on their life. See, everybody has a certain amount of um, operates without 100% information. So we all have cognitive distortion to a certain extent. The problem is if it's so serious that it interferes with us getting what we need out of life.
Mm-hmm.
And um, people who tend to gravitate towards that kind of thinking are people who are anxious. When you're anxious, you can't focus right. So you might focus on anything. and the anything may be something familiar to you that you used to focus on in the past, and it was right back then, but it's not right now. It also is people who are depressed have a good chance of having cognitive distortion to a place where it's really problematic, because.
So are you saying that any indication of emotional instability is an indication is proof that you have a cognitive distortion? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying emotional instability contributes greatly to cognitive distortion. The extent to which you are emotionally upset is the extent to which you're going to focus on the wrong thing and not be able to see things properly.
Okay, so the emotion the greater the emotion, or the more intense the emotion, the greater the distortion.
Yes, when we have emotions, when we strongly believe something without the facts, see, that's the important part. Without the facts, we just think that that's the way it is. You talked about some of the things we talked about, emotional reasoning. And it's because that's one of the things we covered. You think it's like this because you feel it's like this, but you don't have any facts to back it up. And if
But I
somebody.
feel very strongly in my heart, and God knows my heart.
Yes, he does. And let's not say what he says about the heart. He says the heart is wicked above all things. Who can know it?
But that's a very popular rebuttal that people say, and it will say, I'm sure I've said it at some point. When you're being corrected, when you're going down a path and somebody tries to correct you, God knows my heart. You don't have to. For example, what good one is, you don't have to go to church because God already knows my heart. But you're saying, Jeremiah, I know the scripture you're talking about, Jeremiah 17, I think it is. Heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure.
Well, to come up with the conclusion that you don't have to go to church means, well, what has the Bible said? Did you check out the facts? And he said not to forsake, get yourself in gathering. The church is us, it's people, it's not a building. The church is us. So no, you don't have to go into a building. Actually, during the pandemics, we didn't go. I didn't go. Okay. But I found ways to stay connected with the community.
Right. Okay. Well, I just want to point out that that's an example of people saying, they feel very strongly. I really feel, and there's a lot of there's a whole way of living around feelings that people subscribe to, and sometimes it's not even. You just think that because it's right, because you feel strongly, then it must be right, and you're saying absolutely not, because that creates wrong
I'm
thinking.
saying you can have strong feelings, but make sure it's based on facts, not your imagination.
Okay, what's another distortion that we've covered that people may need to be reminded of?
We talked about all or nothing thinking, and that's looking at things from only one extreme. In other words, there's no gray area. It's either my way, your way, or the highway.
Highway, your way, or the highway? No way. Okay, got it. And where does that show up? I mean, is there a particular circumstance where that is particularly detrimental?
Well, I think it's.
Or is it just a mindset that is not right?
Well, it's a mindset that's not right, and it's detrimental to the extent that you have it. If you have only a mild version of it, well, people might just find you a little irritating and they'll keep on going. But if you have an extreme version of it, people will avoid you like the plague. stay away from her.
Okay, and if people are staying away from you, that clearly will impact your altitude, because we need relationships and community in order to grow and prosper. Good relationships matter. So
Yes.
there
Yes.
goes the altitude right there. Okay, let's go over another uh, reminder. What is another one?
Uh, my mind is
How about
go ahead.
you're frozen? How about oh gosh. Well, let's focus on the one for tonight, which is generalization.
Mhm.
Tell us about generalization. Well, how does that prevent us from reaching our altitude?
So first, what is generalization? Overgeneralization. Okay.
Overgeneralization.
Yes. And overgeneralization is taking one event that happened and interpreting that that is always going to happen. In other words, you don't see things as isolated incidents happening. And so a good place, a place that I think people may be able to see it best is in relationships. You know, let's say you dated Johnny and Johnny was a jerk.
Johnny the jerk.
Yes. You loved it, Johnny. Okay. You thought he was the be and end of everything. But basically you weren't paying attention. You probably had some cognitive distortions. Okay. You only want to see what you want to see. You didn't want to see the facts, right? So
Mm.
you dated him, and all of a sudden he is just breaking your heart. And sooner or later, the whole thing has to come to an end, and you feel horrible. And if you're raked with all kinds of distortion, or like personalization, that's one of them. You can't see that Johnny's a jerk. You think something's wrong with you. That's why Johnny acted the way he acted. But
Or you think all men are like Johnny.
well, that's generalization. When you get to the point when you say all men are Johnny, that's an excellent generalization, and one that can be extremely costly.
Mm.
Extremely costly. Why? Well, the first man in our life is daddy, whether he was there or not there. And if daddy didn't treat you right, for whatever reason, it's going to be hard for you to think that you can trust. It's an issue of trust, see? It's going to be hard for you to think that you can trust somebody else. And it also doesn't help if mommy told you not only is daddy a jerk, but all men are jerks. Let's
Wow.
I'm gonna get real here, okay? Because I think we got real people here.
Yes, let's get real.
Niggas ain't shit.
Mm.
Heard that one?
Yeah, I've heard it.
Yes. That is a generalization. And that generalization means that, sooner or later, even though you may have those thoughts, they settle in the back of your mind because biology kind of sometimes take over. I like him. He got a cute this, he got a cute that. And then he brings this, that, and the other thing with him. Oh, yeah, we're going to make this happen. And so when we're doing the introductory part, which some people don't even understand, that when you're dating, there is an introductory part. You don't go straight into acting like you've been together for the last 20 years or something. You got to get to know people, but you can go there And you can go there fast if you are not operating with reality. If you have a
So Dr. Brown,
fantasy, mhm.
is there a difference between generalization and overgeneralization? Like, how do you know the difference? How do you know when you're generalizing versus overgeneralizing? Or is it the same thing in this context?
Well, it's being extra. That's the ordinary word that people use. You just extra, extra. Do you understand what that means?
This sounds like something you say in Jamaica. She's just extra, but I don't think it's the same. I don't know if it's the same
Well, what
thing
does
they
it
use.
mean in Jamaica?
Too much.
Yes, yes. Way, way overboard,
Over the top, yeah.
over the top.
So you can generalize, but you have to know when to not overgeneralize. Is that what you're saying?
You can generalize, but you have to use facts. With everything is facts, 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 facts.
So
And
once it's
no,
not facts, it becomes overgeneralization.
when it's not facts, it's some kind of cognitive distortion,
Mm.
and overgeneralization is one of them that it would be.
So the thing that I've noticed with this whole thing that you said, and it stayed with me a few weeks ago, you said um, when you don't reach your altitude, it affects causes you to stay stuck in poverty and poor relationships. And it seems like all the distortions that you've mentioned so far they have the potential to keep us in poverty and in poor relationships, which will definitely impact our altitude, which is why it's so important for us to review them and to make sure that, for me anyway, to keep notice on my mind, because I'm very big on the overgeneralization. If that happened, and that probably is going to happen again, and I don't want to, put myself in a position where I have to experience that again. I'm guilty of that one. Genevieve, thank you for joining, by the way, and thank you, Deborah, for joining, and Patricia for joining. Please ask questions, interrupt the conversation. We're talking about how to go from your current attitude, which may be preventing you from getting what you want, reaching your altitude. The altitude is your growth, the highest potential that you can be as much as you can. So in terms of relationships, I do see how it's definitely a big deal because relationships, everybody's talking about relationships, particularly the romantic ones, as you mentioned. And one Johnny who's a jerk can certainly sear your mind and make you think that all Johnnies, no men are no good, black men are no good. Get them, don't marry this kind of man from Jamaica, and I've said that I don't want to marry men from Jamaica, this, that, because I see it's like a stereotype too, is it not? Is it kind of like a stereotype to think that way?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I guess generalization is kind of like a stereotype.
Yeah.
Okay, which is a distortion. Okay, how else can generalization or overgeneralization show up or
So
impact our lives?
it could show up on the job. And it can
Yeah.
show up on the job in that, you know, well, your boss corrected you because you did, well, let's say you had an evaluation. It's time for your evaluation and you sat with your boss and your boss told you that, there were certain areas he was not happy with. And, because you don't want to lose your job, you sit there quiet. Or if you don't sit there quiet, you'll lose your job. It's real easy, okay? But you sit and you listen to him and you leave thinking, you know what? He's never going to be fair to me. He or she is never going to give me a good evaluation because they didn't give me a good evaluation this time. They're a horrible person, and the world is ending tomorrow. I'm going to be homeless, and I'm going to be poor and on the street.
Jeez, that's extreme. My gosh.
Well, that's the point. See, cognitive distortions caused us to go to extreme places because we're not looking at we don't see the true picture. Don't see the true picture. And we have strong feelings about it.
Wow.
I heard during my last leadership class about patterns because I understand what you say, Dr. Brown, and I guess a lot of people who are listening to us now are asking themselves, so what is the solution to get out of this generalization? Because as Angela just said it, sometimes it's a way to protect ourselves from repeating some mistakes. And I was sharing with a fellow Maxwell about pattern. And what we were saying is that there's a pattern in most of the things that we experience. And you have to recognize the patterns if you want to change it. You cannot change a pattern if you don't recognize it. And as John Maxwell said, Coach Angela, he said that experience doesn't mean nothing if you don't learn from this experience, if you don't reflect on this experience. So maybe this can be one of the solutions to help people, get out of this generalization pattern and be able to start again new relationship or to believe again in good relationship they can build. I mean, learn from their experience, recognize the pattern and try to change it. I mean, instead of staying in this generalization. I don't know what do you think about Dr. Brown?
Well, patterns are important. Actually, the mind registers things in patterns. And all that means is programmed. We've been programmed to think and feel a certain way. And if we want to change that, we can't keep doing and following the same things. Otherwise, someone said that's the definition of insanity. You keep doing the same things over and over again and expect a different result. So now, let me give you an example of a simple pattern. Let's say you say to me, I want to buy a car. So that's your goal. You want to buy a car. Now there's certain patterns that you have to adapt to be able, patterns of thinking that you have to adapt to buy that car. You have to save your money.
Yep.
It means every single paycheck, if you're serious about getting this car, you have to put money aside. You can't, let's say if you have a bad pattern, right? Maybe you like to spend. Maybe money doesn't stay long in your pocket for whatever reason, okay? If you spend and say, I want to buy a car, spend, that is not going to happen. Why? Because you're not going to have the money at the end of the day. You must change your behaviors.
Right.
And that is a choice.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, I let me add one thing to it that it's very important to know. You see, the mind, based on research from the social scientists and extra, they say the mind is neutral. Whatever you put in there is what it believes. So if you have put, that's why you feel so strongly about it. If you have put some information in there that's inaccurate or no longer accurate for what you need, changing it is not going to be easy. In fact, it's going to take a certain period of time of you following that pattern, that new pattern, before your mind gets to the point where it accepts it as a new programming. When you first say, I got to set the money apart, your mind is going to say, oh, for real? Really? You have never been able to do that before. What in the world makes you think you're going to do that this time? Oh, don't fool yourself. Go ahead and spend that. You know that dress, you've been wanting that dress for a long time. So you have to fight a lot of things in your mind that is going contrary to you getting what you want. And it's not that the mind is evil or it's bad. The mind was programmed to think that however you are operating is safe. And that's why you have such a strong reaction. If you think, if the old programming gets, you're the computer lady, right, Angela?
Yes.
What happens when you try to take your computer that was programmed to do one thing and tell it to do something else? What happens?
We have this terminology that says good in, good out, or bad in, bad out. It's whatever you put in, whatever you put in it, that's what it's going to regurgitate.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Right, that's it, garbage. That's good.
So what the computer can't think, but it will block it. It won't work. We can think, and we have choices. Right. We will block things out too, but the difference is that we have a choice. And with our choice, guess what? We can talk to that part of our mind, the back part of our mind. See, we got the front part of the mind that's supposed to evaluate and figure out what, and then we've got the back part of the mind, the memory that brings all the old memories up and say, hey, this is what it is. And you're going to have to get to a point where you say to that mind, thank you very much. That is outdated information. I am not unsafe. And I appreciate your speaking to me because I know you're trying to protect me. But at this point, I have made a decision that I'm going to save my money. And you have to do that so many times. And then that part of your mind will begin to accept that programming. Our brain is quite complicated,
So this whole idea of the way we thinking for a change becomes essential in order to move from our current attitude to our altitude. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
And thinking for a change is something I've been focused in the past couple of months. I'm reading this book called Thinking for a Change by John Maxwell. We love John Maxwell on our team. Our coaching team is very focused on growth, and so we think that attacking the distortions, the way the mind works, is where really the first point of change. And a lot of times when we are in these bad situations, whether it be a bad relationship, bad friendship, bad job situation, we think that, I just need to change. Let me move to another country, another state, another neighborhood. let me get a new man, let me get, you probably can't get some new kids, but if you could, you probably would. But it's a lot of times the change doesn't bring about any real change because we're changing in the wrong direction. And so unless we are thinking, let me change in the right direction, then we're going to continue to live out the distortions. And it becomes frustrating. I know for a while when I felt like I was stuck, it's because I wasn't changing in the right direction. I knew something was wrong. I could see the pattern in my life that clearly something is wrong, but I could never like put myself in a position where I looked at myself in the mirror and say, Angela, you're the one that needs to change. You need to invest in self-development. You need to invest in growth. You need to invest in therapy. You need to invest in coaching. You need to take personal responsibility for yourself. And then, only then did I start to change and grow in the right direction. And so people hear change, they think, oh, I can't change. Or they say, well, I did change my job, or I changed my neighborhood, or whatever. But you may notice that wherever you go, there you go. You're taking yourself with you. So that's why really spending time on this whole thing of how the mind works and the distortions that interfere, interrupt, and interrogate our promise, our possibility, our promise, and our potential is so very important. So this idea, does anyone in the chat have any questions? Please feel free to. Actually, somebody does have a question. Let me see here. Somebody said, change your life and you'll get your new present now. Forget about the past and move on and have mental care. That's what Patricia says. Well, that is true. The thing is that we often feel so challenged, even though we know the right thing. We don't somehow get it. It doesn't happen for us because we know what we're supposed to do, Patricia. We know we're supposed to change. We know we can have a new life. We know it intellectually, but somehow when it comes down to the application, it just doesn't happen. Can you speak to that more, Dr. Brown, about how we know, at least we think we know we need to change, but we don't see the fruit of it in our lives. It's like, the theory and the practical doesn't get married. And so it doesn't crystallize into anything real for us, even though we may know or may want to.
So what we know is what we think we know. But there's an unconscious part that we may not be aware of. And for the most part, don't want to be aware of, because a lot of people just want to be self-willed. If you have a strong will, you just want to do things your way, and that's that, But there is a way. The first step, I think, in the process of change is to become aware. Until you become aware and you're convinced, you're not going anywhere. You're not going to talk to anybody. Okay? Coming on here and listening helps. There's also something else that you can do that's actually free. You can get apps. There are apps. There are free apps having to do with cognitive distortions. And what they can do is they can help you become aware of what all the distortions are. And hopefully, as you're reading it, there's no one else there to witness what's going on. If you can be honest with yourself and you take time, you have to, this is not something that you do on the fly. You may be tempted to do that because it's uncomfortable, but you have to be willing. It's just like with therapy, to deal with a certain level of uncomfortability. So you find a quiet space. You give yourself a half hour. You look and see what the app is saying. And then you see, this one sounds like what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to the point where you can say, this one sounds like what I do, there will be exercises and things that they can give you to do. But usually it helps to be with someone who has the proper training and who knows how to deal with cognitive distortion. So that, and who, oh, please don't let it be your friend, okay? Because your friend is gonna lie to you, okay? They're just gonna lie, all right? You need to get yourself a trained person who's not connected, who is honest. And let me tell you, even trained people aren't honest, okay? Why? Because some people are just in it for the money. Let's be real, all right? And they will sit there and listen to you talk about all kind of foolishness until you get to the point where you say, you know what, this isn't working for me, and you leave. And then you say, this therapy stuff sucks. It doesn't do any good. That will be an overgeneralization. No, that person may not be the best person for you, but that person isn't everybody, you know? So there are steps. A lot of it is writing. People don't like to do that, you know? It's write down what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what's going on. Now look, if you don't write, you won't know. And if you don't want to know, you won't write. It's a vicious cycle, you see? But once you can break that, then there's hope that you can start to say, well, you know what? All men aren't like Johnny.
Not all men are not like Johnny the jerk.
The jerk, right? And you know what? I have to take some responsibility about it. I'm not going to be the victim. Oh, you can go to people, and some women now, oh, dear God, okay? Men are the bashing things now. Let me not start with the Barbie movie, okay? Men suck. That's what Barbie says. And this is the message that women, young girls are getting right now. Wonder why they're scared and upset, okay? Who can go to, I don't know if any of y'all ever looked at the movie, probably not, you know, but you need to look at it before. If you have a girl child, don't send your child to look at Barbie without you looking at it first. Because one of the things they do is they sit up there, Miss Barbie is the idol, the American Idol. This is who all the girls should be, right? And they show these little girls sit there looking so sad, feeding their babies and things. And when Barbie is finished with them, they smashing their babies, honey. That's what's in that Barbie movie.
They smash the babies?
They smash the baby dolls. They throw it away. Huh? What's the point?
For that?
The point is the point is feminism, okay? We don't need men. Oh, no, we don't need no men. We can make our own self happy by ourselves. And the men say, oh, we could do the same thing too. So who needs kids?
But wait, what does the smashing of the doll have to do with that belief?
The smashing of the doll is a smashing of the whole role of motherhood.
Oh, wow. That's quite a distortion.
That's a smashing of a value system.
Wow.
And this is not new. It goes way, way, way back. Actually, I was listening to, somebody sent me a video and I shared it with some people. But Miss Barbie was a prostitute way back when, okay? And Miss Barbie had no use for men way back when. They were an inconvenience. Oh, excuse me, are some of us acting like that now? We think our man is useless. We shouldn't listen to him. I don't need him. I could do it on my own. Go ahead with your bad self, okay? Go and do your thing. I've been around long enough to know that it's a bold-faced lie straight out of the pit of hell. That's my opinion.
All right now. Bold-faced lie straight out of pit of hell. Well, she has
right. That's right.
the experience to say it.
Well,
30 years of practicing what you do, psychotherapy and coaching.
And a whole bunch of other stuff too. And besides that, it's saying that God didn't have a good idea. How about that? God created man and woman. He created the man for the woman and the woman for the man. Where is God in the Barbie movie? He is not even considered, just like he's not considered in our society today. It's a destruction of the family. So yes, you know what? There were some men that weren't right, but that doesn't mean you throw everybody away. And you better watch who you're talking to. Because if you're talking to some demon-possessed people, they're going to tell you to throw your husband away. And it's going to feel good because it's in your heart. It's, oh, that lady that attacked me, okay, is because I said, don't go by your heart. What's in your heart? And she said, she identified herself as a Christian just as so many other people do. But then they go off on their own thing. You know, no, you got to, I got to trust my heart. But then God is a liar because the heart is, he said the heart is wicked above all things. Who can know it?
Wow.
Yes, we're in a fight. We are in a war. And can you imagine being in a war and you don't even know you're in a war? You don't know you're in a war. You don't know what the climate is. You going out there acting like Tiny Tim. Do you know Tiny Tim?
No, I don't actually. Never heard of Tiny Tim. Educate us.
Well,
please,
he was
Dr.
this great big white boy, huge. And somebody look it up. And he had a ukulele, okay? And he said, you tipping toe what you think is your sanctified imagination. And what you're doing is tipping in hell. Because you don't want to listen. Because your daddy wasn't nice to you. Yeah, it's real. Your husband is not your daddy. He's not supposed to be. And according to what God said, you are his helpmate. He's not there to make you look good. He has a job. He has to respect you. He has to love you. He has to take care of you. But Barbie says he's an accessory. Take him or leave him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guess I won't be seeing Barbie.
You need to see it so that you know what your child is dealing with. Because guess what? If your child is going to school, she is talking with other children there.
Yeah.
You're right.
You need to know what's going on, because how can you fight the enemy if you don't even know, you don't know you got an enemy and you don't know what the enemy is doing.
Yeah, education will definitely help with the distortion. Wow, that's powerful. But you said something earlier, which is reminds me of the scripture. It says that you have to be willing to sit down with a pen and paper, write down your thoughts. Some things which sometimes I have a hard time doing, but I've been taking time to go away and sit down and write past couple of weeks. Take the time to sit down, write on your thoughts, and can't argue what you see in the app or what you write down, and be willing to get help, not from your friends. It reminds me of a scripture that says that we should practice humility. I think it's in Philippians
Mhm.
2, I think. It
Mhm.
says, Jesus did not consider himself equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, and he died on the cross, even, cross, the death of a cross, on the cross. And I think of if Jesus was willing to take that stance of humility, then Angela, you can at least try if the Son of God was willing to do that. And I think that's what it's going to take in order to be willing to face the fact that there's a possibility that you may have some distortions going on that you probably don't even know that you don't know.
Hmm.
Don't know what you don't know, you cannot grow.
Exactly.
But if you know, you start to grow and it starts to show. So the idea of saying, you know what, you may think you don't need it because you're fine, but it's a possibility that you don't even know that you don't know. So from that perspective, I'm inviting you, whether you're listening live or on the replay, to contact us via the eSpeaks platform and have a personalized consultation. Dr. Brown is saying you should go get a professional, but you know what? She's actually accessible through the eSpeaks platform. And her expertise is definitely something that could be of great benefit if you're willing to say, you know what, I don't even know that I don't know. So let me find out what I don't know. And
Exactly.
perhaps I will grow, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that to me is a huge deal. Just having the posture of humility, positioning yourself to grow. Your positioning matters. I see that playing out in my business. It plays out in my marriage. It plays out in my with my children. Uh, just an example for my business. Recently, for years, for example, we've been trying to sell to this organization. Like I've been in business for like 18 years, and it was not happening until I repositioned my mindset, literally, and started doing a whole bunch of other things. And last week, actually, we were notified that we are being awarded a contract. But I've been going after this agency for 18 years and not getting a single piece of business. And the repositioning that I did landed as a 3-year contract. So this idea of thinking for a change, I see it materializing in different areas of my life as I embrace the journey to not just change, but change in the right direction.
Exactly.
And this here that we're talking about, to change your attitude for your altitude, is just another, strand of that. So I just want to say thank you. Did you have any last thoughts that you want to share, Genevieve or
Yes,
Dr. Brown or anybody in the audience?
yes, what you are sharing is really great, and Dr. Brown has summarized it in a way that remind me the 15 laws of growth of John Maxwell, because exactly in the same sequence, he talks about the law of awareness. We have to be aware that there is something going on. But just after the law of awareness, he talks about the law of mirror, but he talks about the law of reflection, how it is important to have this pause to allow growth to catch up. He said that when you are going in the wrong direction, you don't need motivation to speed, you need to stop. And this stop
Wow.
is so important when we're going, because it's all about our altitude. So when you see that you are not at all at the altitude you need to have, the only thing that you have to make is to change your attitude, and we know that. But the thing is, most of the time we neglect this time of pause, this time of reflection, what John Maxwell called the law of reflection, being able to take this pause, to make this stop, to analyze our pattern and work on changing this pattern in the right way. And this is exactly as she said, where you need someone who can help you in this way, having the right help, like someone like Dr. Brown, or a thinking partner who is actually a coach that can help you embrace this journey, this pose, and to see what you don't know. Yeah. So the pose is definitely very important.
The law of reflection. I think I remember. I remember him also saying that experience is not the greatest teacher.
Exactly.
Evaluated experience is the greatest teacher. So we can. A lot of people are saying experience, but if you don't reflect on it and evaluate it and make the change, and it doesn't matter.
Exactly. It
You'll
doesn't make
continue
any
to have
difference.
distortion. Yeah, you
So
continue being distorted.
one good way, one practical way that people can start, because although we want to think that everybody's going to just sign up for coaching, I don't know if that's going to happen. Okay. Hopefully it will. But to begin, the writing is not that difficult. Let's go back to Johnny the Jerk. Okay. You write, this is called a thought log. That's the beginning of becoming aware of what's going on. Write down what happened to make you think about Johnny. And then be honest. See, if you're not honest, that's another thing you have to work on. Okay. But I think Johnny is a jerk. Write it down. And when you write down, I think Johnny is a jerk, you can think to yourself, well, what proof do I have? Well, if he stole my wallet and if I caught him with some other girl and all this kind of stuff. But if I have issues that cause me to twist things around, like maybe I have jealousy issues, maybe Johnny isn't a jerk, maybe I'm the jerk. Okay. And so you come up with what other possible things could be going on here other than is Johnny the jerk. And then once you do that, you go as low as you can in understanding it, but if you're still stuck in your mind, that's when you know, I need to get somebody to help me because I tried and I can't get it.
Great point. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Once again, the eSpeaks platform is determined to help you to heal, aspire, and grow. And this is just another example of us trying to reach out to help you to start where it matters with our minds and the way we think. Thus the title, How to Exchange Your Attitude for Your Altitude. Please reach out to us via our website, or you can reach me at angela@evespeaks.com, and I'll give you access to whatever you need. And go ahead and take those tips. Get yourself a journal. Start a thought log. Doesn't cost you anything to just start writing your thoughts down and being honest. And then if you're stuck, reach out. Have a good evening. We are glad that you joined us this evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown, and thank you, Coach Genevieve.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome.